Hey there, it's Terry Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting. Dodo Birds and Lucky Black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, please smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please knock that out while you're here. And while you're doing that, let me remind you what we got going on. It's called the Summer Shoot Around. It's a series during which we're focusing on 20 notable teams over a span of 10 weeks, 2 per week, 20 teams in 10 weeks, and we're doing the schools in alphabetical order. So we've already knocked out a bunch of them: Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Auburn, Gonzaga, Houston, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisville, Michigan, and North Carolina. Now we in the O's. Turn our attention to Ohio State. The Buckeyes went 20-12 last season, finished top 4th in the Big Ten. From that team, they lost 7 of their top 8 scorers, including E.J. Liddell, Malachi Branham. That's a lot. They bring back Zed Key, Justice Suing back from an abdominal injury, adding a top 10 recruiting class featuring 2 top 50 freshmen, plus transfers, Isaac Likely and Sean McNeil. I've got Ohio State ranked 24th in the top 25-1. We'll see what Norlander thinks of Chris Holtmann's Buckeyes here in a moment. But first, a word from our partners.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want Mo Magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount+.
All right, Deadleg. Ohio State lost a lot. The Buckeyes added some interesting pieces via the transfer portal. Simple question for you.
Yeah.
Is this the year Chris Holtmann finally gets the credit he deserves?
Well, he's getting the credit he deserves by even getting a standalone episode for this show. You need to lay out the case. Listen, Ohio State, really good coach, quality program, should probably go to the NCAA tournament. I don't see a top 25 roster here. Now, we're not, to be clear, the shoot-around series is not, you have to be a top 25 team for sure. But Parrish does have him in his rankings there. So when you did, it almost feel like they might have snuck in the back door on you here, buddy. I'm not convinced that I would rate this team top 30 going in. But why do you do just that?
I got 3 syllables for you. Chris Holtmann.
That's it. That's all you need.
It's Chris Holtmann. That is all you need.
It's true. He's had I'm going to guess I'm going off the top of my dome here. I'm going to say Holtmann, 8 years running, Ohio State and Butler. I'm going to say that he's never failed. I'll say his teams have never. I'll say he hasn't had a team outside the top 15 Ken Baum in at least 8 seasons. That might be wildly wrong. Maybe there's a bad season there, but it always feels like they're in the mix there.
I can tell you that he has not missed the NCAA tournament at Butler, Ohio, or Ohio State ever. Over the past few seasons. Well, he finished 31st at Ken Baum last year.
Still inside the top 50.
Oh, top 50. I thought you said 15. Oh no,
no. Yeah, top. I don't know if he's had it I don't know if he's had a bad team and
I'll run you through his Ken Palm finishes since he got the Butler job in 2014-15 season. 20th, 30th, 25th, 16, 44, 8, 11, 31.
There you go.
Never outside of the top 45. Doesn't matter doesn't matter where he's coaching, doesn't matter who's on the roster, never outside of the top 45. The last time he missed the NCAA tournament as a coach, 2013, when he was at Gardner-Webb. But he's never missed it at Butler. He was there 3 years, never missed it at Ohio State. He's been there 5 years, 7 trips to the NCAA tournament, and only lost, and would have been 8 if not for the dumbest pandemic of my lifetime. 7 trips to the NCAA tournament and has only lost in the first round once. He's advanced in 6 of the 7 NCAA tournaments he's coached in.
But the one was brutal. Now, the one was also to the 15 that went to the second weekend, but the one was obviously Oral Roberts.
Well, yeah, the one was, you don't want to lose to Oral Roberts in the first round. We can all agree on that. The other thing that people bang on him a little bit it's the 0 Sweet 16s at Ohio State. That motto went to 5 Sweet 16s in a 7-year span at Ohio State from 2007 to 13. Had 2 Final Fours in there, made the title game in 2007. There was never a 5-year span in the Thad Matta era. Never. Beginning, middle, end, doesn't matter, where they make the Sweet 16 at least once. And Chris has been at Ohio State 5 years and still yet to get to the Sweet 16, though he's in the NCAA tournament every year that he was in the NCAA tournament. So consistently good, impressive. Don't take those for granted. Sometimes fans of schools take NCAA tournament appearances for granted. They're like, well, we're supposed to in the NCAA tournament. And you know, what's the big deal about that? And then they fire a coach for just getting the NCAA tournament, and then they go 7 years without going back to the NCAA tournament. So don't take the NCAA tournament appearances for granted. It's not a birthright at Ohio State or basically anywhere else other than Kansas and Michigan State. I think it's a birthright there. But other places, you know, that's not to be taken for granted. But he does need to bust through at some point. I can acknowledge on paper this roster might not look like the bust through type of team, but if the question is, and I answered it with a joke, but I'm being sincere.
No, it's for real. Yeah.
Why is Ohio State in the top 25-1? It's because Chris Holtmann's still the coach, and I think he's really, really good.
This seems like his biggest challenge since he got to Ohio State, because I don't think he's ever had this many new players, this big of a gel job, if you will. A lot of questions with the roster. I think the array of results for Ohio State could be, I think the ceiling is probably 4 seed. I'd be pretty surprised if this team won the Big Ten personally. And if you win the Big Ten, you're going to be better than the 4 seed. So I'd say 4 seed and floor, bottom end of the NIT. I really think it is that wide. Proven players that are returning, Zed Key, and then suing to an extent, right? But
he barely played last season, but the year before he was a double-digit scorer. He's a real player.
Yes. So it's like he is proven, but he's coming off the injury. So we'll see. How good will the freshmen be? I mean, they're bringing in 4 freshmen that are basically top 75 to top 50 kind of level. My guess on the starting 5 here is you'll have Key in the middle. You'll have Sewing. Isaac Likely via Oklahoma State. I love Isaac. Isaac Likely is like a glue guy plus, I would define him as. He is very tough, competitive, versatile. I think he fills a hole. I'd be stunned if he doesn't start. A veteran, I think they need a player like him. Sean McNeil will probably also start. Sharpshooter was 38% from 3-point range at West Virginia. And then Bruce Thornton is, I guess, the most ready among the freshmen. He'll probably play the point. He's probably the freshman name to know, although they've got opportunities. I mean, Roddy Gale has a ton of upside, 6'4" freshman. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be Bryce Sensabaugh is another one. He might be the best scorer, but I don't know if he'll start. I would anticipate Ohio State will be a better as the season goes along type of team. Like, I don't know if this team is going to be all that intriguing in the first 3 to 4 weeks, and we will get to the schedule in a few here. I'll break down who they're facing when we do regular season over under. But there is a real chance that this team this season, you know, they're okay. They crack into the tournament, but if all the freshmen stay, they go into next season as like a clear-cut top 25 level kind of team, and they've got aspirations maybe of winning the Big Ten. If you're Holtmann and you're Ohio State and you're a Buckeye fan listening to this, you're just, can you get through the season without health issues? You know, you had plenty last season and the year before. The year before that, you were a really good team, and then there was no tournament because of COVID. Like, you're kind of aching a little bit for just, can we get through a season without having one of our 4 or 5 best players have, you know, any kind of health issue? Seth Towns just effectively like retired from basketball, which was kind of expected, but that was announced really within the past 48 hours of us taping this episode there. So you won't even have Towns on the roster this season at all. So I think it will be a little bit of a work in progress, but I'm with you. I trust Holtmann. I do think this team will get to the tournament, but I don't think it should be a top 25 team going into the season.
I think you've got the starting lineup right. 2 returning Buckeyes, 2 transfers, and then Bruce Thornton. He's the 6'1" point guard, number 47 in the class of 2022. Physical, thick point guard. Mr. Basketball in the state of Georgia. I spent last night reading all of Adam Jardy's coverage from the Bahamas trip that Ohio State went on. Adam, of course, the terrific beat writer at the Columbus Dispatch.
Big Oasis guy. He will appreciate me mentioning that when he listens to this podcast. So yes, shouts to
one of the great college basketball beat writers we have.
There we go.
And so I was like, if I'm going to talk about Ohio State, I read everything Adam wrote and, borrow. And one of the points that he made is that in the Bahamas, Bruce Thornton and I likely were kind of like splitting point guard duties. But the thought seems to be, from reading quotes from Chris, that they would like Bruce Thornton to establish himself as this team's point guard, if not by the beginning of the season, as the season progressed. And the quotes from him were he seemed like a really mature young man. Like he knows what he's there to do, knows what he's not there to do. Takes pride in defense. He closed the games. I think I remember that being a point that Adam made in the Bahamas. He was closing the games, which is, an encouraging sign if you're Bruce Thornton, because it suggests that your coach already trusts you to some degree. So if I was trying to, gas up this team, I would say, okay, listen, they lost a lot. 7 of the top 8 scorers. They lost a lot. And it ain't like they brought in 3 5-star freshmen or anything like that. But Isaac Lilly is not coming off a great season. He wasn't great last year. Career low in points, rebounds per game, career low in field percentage. But he is, and this surprised me, and I also am borrowing this from Adam Jardy, the only player in Oklahoma State history, Isaac Likely is, with 1,000 points, 600 rebounds, and 400 assists in his career. So he was never a star, but he was reliable, although he needs to be better this season at Ohio State than he was last season for Oklahoma State. But he was still a relevant player for a good team. Sean McNeil averaged, 12 points per game, shot 37% from 3 on nearly 5 attempts per game. So the 2 transfers are guys who have been productive players at, big time programs. Justice Suing was a double-digit scorer 2 years ago when healthy. He has been a relevant and reliable player for Ohio State. Zed Key is more of just your role-playing big.
Yeah.
But he played the role well. And then Bruce Thornton, if he can be what his accolades suggest is possible, then I think you've got a solid team there. Is that a team that is going to be great? I don't know if they'll be great, but I could see them being rock solid, finishing top 4 in the Big Ten, and continuing Chris Holtmann's streak of making the NCAA tournament without exception since becoming Butler's head coach.
Sounds like a team that'll probably be 8 deep, but guys that are maybe 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 in that rotation, they'll get a better sense. The staff will as we get closer to the start of the season. But I just think it's going to take a little bit to figure that out, and maybe we get a better sense of it by the end of Ohio State's MTE, which leads me to regular season win total. So here are the games of note for your Buckeyes. They are you want to know how good now PK 85 is the best early season event. We get that, but you want to know how good Maui is? We're talking about yet another team that's going to Maui. I mean, I feel like 5 or 6 teams that are going to be in this event have been featured in our summer shoot-around series. So Ohio State's there. They'll play San Diego State to start, and they will be an underdog, I believe, in that game. I think San Diego State will be favored, and then they will play either Cincinnati or Arizona, depending on how it breaks. And then the other end of the bracket, they'll face one of Texas Tech, Creighton, Arkansas, or Louisville. If you're an Ohio State fan, yes, you're just trying to get out of there 2-1 and 1 in some kind of combination. 1-2 wouldn't surprise me. They're at Duke, ACC Big Ten at Duke on November 30th. And then they've got UNC in the CBS Sports Classic on December 17th. Those are really the games of note. And Holtmann has not been shy about being ambitious with his scheduling, but again, you kind of get in. Sometimes coaches will tip their hand. They'll show what they're holding by how they schedule. Obviously, there's going to be a batch of bye games every single season from a power conference standpoint, but here, that's all they have. They have 3 in Maui, at Duke versus UNC. Now, at Duke and versus UNC, those are very, very challenging, and all 3 games in Maui will be challenging, but there's just 5 of note. Go ahead.
And those 5, they were all locked into them.
Yes, that's right. Because that's ACC Big Ten, it's CBS Sports Classic, and then it's Maui. They don't have any control over scheduling any of that.
This wasn't one of those. How about this? We see all the time, Gonzaga and Michigan State are scheduling a game, in July or whenever that was. Ohio State did not go add any significant non-league game to its schedule once they knew what their roster was going to look like. The big non-league games they're playing, they've been locked into literally for years.
Yes, exactly. I think best case scenario in those 5 is a 3-2 record. 2-3 might be the most likely outcome there. And then in league play, they only get Minnesota, Penn State, and Wisconsin at home. That's beneficial. They only have to play Indiana once, but it's on the road. They only have to play Michigan once, but it's on the road. But good news, they only have to play Nebraska once. It's on the road. Auto win. They're going to walk into Pinnacle Bank. They're split. Oh, yeah, that's right. A home and away tournament level teams or potential tournament level teams. You've got Rutgers, Purdue, Michigan State, Maryland, Illinois. It's gonna be an interesting one. So I'm gonna let you go first again. Next one I'll go first, but you've gone first on a few of these episodes here. Regular season, heading into the Big Ten tournament, win total, Buckeyes. What do we got?
I'm gonna go 3 non-league losses.
Okay, 3
non-league losses, and then 4th place in the Big Ten last year was 12-8. So I go 12-8 in the league. So I'm going to go 20-11 heading into the Big Ten tournament. 4th place in the Big Ten, safely on the right side of the bubble, but seated in a place where you're going to have to play a real game in your first round.
Sounds like, I don't know, 7 seed maybe?
Somewhere in there.
We are on the same page. I have 20 wins for your Buckeyes going into the Big Ten tournament, and it might be a situation where Big Ten play could make a real difference if they can dodge 8, 9, 7, 10, or get up to the 6th line. We'll wait and see. We're on the same page there. I assume we're not getting out of this Ohio State summer shoot-around series without talking Bronny James, right?
He did visit over the weekend. He was there for the Notre Dame game. There was Bronny James chants at the Ohio State Notre Dame game, I gather. And so it comes at the same time. They lost a commitment this weekend as well. George Washington III,
GW the third,
the father of our country.
There's only one place where this player can now go.
He's got to go to GW. If your name is George Washington,
he might not want to. You might not want to. How about you go there and become a legend, young man?
Dude, how could you not go to GW if your name is George Washington III? By the way, how do you even get named George Washington III? I mean, obviously, your
well,
dad.
We know how it happened.
Your George was George Washington. Your dad's George Washington II, and then your grandfather is the father of our country.
I gotta see the family etymology here. I gotta know what's going on.
His grandfather.
What if he was George Washington like the 13th and was actually descendant,
like Aegon?
Oh
There's
my
so many
gosh.
Aegons. There's so many Aegons.
Anyway, they lose you. They my understanding, and kind of sniffing around the recruiting circles, is he's actually not considered, maybe like a Big Ten level player at this stage.
He's not Abraham Lincoln III.
He's not
John F. Kennedy III.
He's not Honest Abe. So with that, and but with that decommitment in line with Bronny James, being there, it's people are going to presume stuff. I'm not going to presume any of that, by the way. I don't know if Bronny James is going to go play college basketball. We are going to have that. But 2 things for me on Bronny. One, I don't think you should anticipate a Bronny James college commitment until the spring. That's just my read on it. And 2, LeBron James does love Ohio State. I know he's connected in a significant way to like the most powerful boosters at that university, which obviously makes sense. But I don't know if Ohio State's the favorite. I mean, I put Ohio State at like, I don't know, 25, 30% to eventually land Bronny James. There's a long way to go in this recruitment, but this was his first. The reason why this is a big deal was football game, Notre Dame season opener, and it's his first college visit. LeBron James never did this. So I think for the family, for Bronny, for LeBron himself, I think it was actually a really big deal, important deal. It was important to LeBron personally as someone who grew up in Akron with Ohio State being the university that he rooted for this one to be the first one. I don't think it necessarily indicates that Ohio State is the front runner or anything like that. Not to say he won't eventually go there. I'm not even convinced, and we're not going to slip down the Bronny conversation. I'm not even convinced that Bronny James as a freshman will be good enough to start as a Big Ten player as a freshman.
That's the problem.
So there's also that. But he is involved at Ohio State and looking at other places, USC, Oregon, among some others, and Memphis obviously is in there. And so there's a lot more to go in the Bronny James recruitment, but it's pure coincidence. We are talking about the Bucks as they're coming off having Bronny James and others, by the way. They had like 3 or 4 of the people I think there for a visit there. I'm sure I haven't talked to Holtmann about this in depth, but I'm sure it was actually insane for him and that staff to have to do because there's that kind of game, as you all know, GP, like you get a huge football game. That's the game where it's not just like, okay, let's get our one recruit in. It's like all the recruits that are involved, either signed or unsigned, committed or uncommitted, they want to go there, experience that. And so you've got to cater to in normal circumstances, 2 or 3 notable recruits and their families. Throw in LeBron James. I'm sure it's quite an experience for that coaching staff, and probably good for recruiting as well. But I don't recall seeing, it might have happened, but I wasn't dialed into every second. But I don't recall seeing Holtmann on the sidelines with LeBron. Some coaches might be insistent on doing that, like the photo op kind of deal. I don't think Holtmann was all about that. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see where this goes with them on the Ohio State front.
Yeah, I talked about this on a recent episode of the On College Basketball podcast with David Cobb. I have an possible unpopular opinion about the Bronny James recruitment. I'm not saying I wouldn't recruit him. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I would be hesitant to recruit him at the Ohio State level, because I think you're right. It's not clear he's a freshman impactful player at the Big Ten level. And if he's not, it's a problem. This is not, Bronny James is ranked 4th in the class of 2023. He's not DJ Wagner. He's a borderline top 50 guy, according to most, recruiting analysts. And those types of guys don't often have major impacts at good/great Big Ten programs. And so if you bring him in and he's just a normal, forget his name for a second, he's just a normal borderline top 50 guy at a place like Ohio State, he's probably a role player for you. And then if you try to force play him and make him something more than that, you got locker room problems. And if you don't play him, well, then, they're leading get up on a Wednesday morning. Bronny James played 11 minutes last night for Ohio State, and Stephen A. Smith is like, did Bronny James make the right decision to go to Ohio State? That's a thing. That's a thing.
I actually don't like it for Bronny at all. He wants to play, he likes basketball. He wants to play basketball. That's great and all that stuff. A lot of stuff is out of his control, but I don't like this idea that you could be setting him up for a lot of unwarranted, unneeded public backlash. He's going to be as good as he's going to be, and I'm pretty sure LeBron James is determined to get his son to the NBA. But at a certain point, you're as good as you are. You are as good as you are. And some of the stuff that might fall on Bronny, I don't know. It's not the healthiest thing. I hope he gets to a place where he's capable enough of playing at that level and he's good enough, and we're not, square peg round holing this situation, and he can find a spot where he wants to play, and and there's an actual, natural fit. Whether that's Ohio State or not, I don't know, but that was his first visit.
If Bruce Thornton plays, is 7th in minutes played at Ohio State this season, I don't think he'll be, by the way. I think he's going to be a starter. But if Bruce Thornton is 7th in minutes played, nobody cares other than Bruce Thornton's family, maybe. But if Bronny James is averaging 14 minutes a game at Ohio State as a freshman, or UCLA as a freshman, USC as a freshman, Memphis as a freshman, it's something people are talking about. Now, what you and I will do is come on here and say, guys, what did you expect? He was ranked 52nd in his high school class. Guys like that sometimes make big impacts at big programs as freshmen, but not often. You wouldn't bet on it. So, what did you expect? But that ain't going to stop people from getting on TV on a Thursday morning asking big questions. Should Bronny James transfer? Did LeBron James make a mistake letting his son go to school here? Is Bronny James really going to enter the draft after scoring 6 points a game at wherever? That is going to happen, and that's not going to be the easiest thing to deal with. Again, I'm not saying I would not recruit him. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying if you're Mick Cronin and the infield, Chris Holtmann, Penny Hardaway, you have to recognize this ain't normal. What you're bringing in is not a normal thing, and they're all smart enough to recognize. They know it. I'm not telling these guys anything they don't know, but you got to realize that if you take a guy ranked exactly where Bronny James is ranked and make him just a role player as a freshman, but his name's not Bronny James, that is the expected outcome. Nobody blinks. You do that with Bronny James, and it's going to be literally a national story. People will be talking about it.
Yep. And I wouldn't expect anything can change, I guess. But I just think given that who he is and LeBron, they're going to want to wait to see how rosters shake out, transfer stuff. I don't think Bronny James is going to commit to a college before we get to at least April. Personally,
I hope they do the decision part 2.
Bronny James. Do that. I don't think they're going to do that either.
That would be hilarious. If he got, who conducted that interview?
That was Jim Gray.
Bring Jim Gray in.
Yeah.
I mean, do the whole
let
thing.
The entire sports internet and television industry on fire. Do that. Yeah.
Bring Jim Gray in to interview Bronny James about where he's taking his talents.
Have him wear the same outfit LeBron did.
Exact same outfit.
Get Donovan Mitchell in the stands like he was. Donovan Mitchell, as at the time he was like 16 years old.
Put Donovan Mitchell in the stands.
Donovan Mitchell, get him back there to watch the whole thing. Yeah,
be perfect.
Yeah.